selfishly, in a strange way, when you start adding more value and giving knowledge, you'll suddenly get a lot of amazing feedback, So it is a feel-good factor as well when you realize, what I'm putting out there means something. It is having an impact. It is helping others. And that feeds off itself. It kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you start to feel like, I want to do more of this. I want to give back more. I want to share more.
My name is Lisa Hugo, and I'm obsessed with helping other people find and develop their voices so they can go out and take on the world, be seen as an authority, expert, and speak their truth with utmost confidence because they know that what they have to share will connect with their audience and make a difference. I studied performing arts and spent 20 years of my career traveling the world as a professional singer-songwriter. I teach you the secrets to speak up and be heard, overcome your fears, to build your speaking skills, and learn how you can use your skills to make a change both in your own life and the lives of others. This is your one-stop shop for all things confident speaking. This is Impact Through Voice. Welcome back to the Impact Through Voice podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hugo, and today I'm joined in the studio by a powerhouse in TV, film, media production. Welcome, Reim al Houni.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me in the studio. I've been following you for quite some time, and I felt there's such a synergy between what you're putting out on your social media about how people need to be on camera and also the messages that I'm putting out about using our voice. So I'm really excited to have this discussion. I think we're going to have a lot to share with my listeners and a lot of value to share. But you're somebody who wears many hats. So I would like to know more, and you share in your own words, what is it that you do? Because I've seen you've got so many things going on. Tell us a bit about yourself.
God, what is it that I do? If only I knew half the time. To be honest, I'm just someone who's incredibly passionate about the world of film and TV. I grew up loving the world of film and TV. All of my education is in it. All of my experience is in it. And now I'm basically manifesting that in different ways and different forms, because the media world is one that's always evolving. It's one that's always evolving. There's always new tech. There's always new ways of doing things. So if you're not evolving with it, it's very easy to become obsolete. So to answer the original question, we work on a whole range of things. But I ultimately am the CEO of a group of video companies. TI22 Films is where we work with a lot of broadcasters, and we create TV shows, and we work with government entities on a lot of large-scale events like The Daily Show at Expo 2020 or at COP28. But we have a second brand, which is Dubai On Demand, which I'm also passionate about, because we primarily work with CEOs and SMEs and startups to help them grow their visibility. We also do a lot in the animation space. So we have a brand called Dynamite and a brand called Fusion, where we work on a lot of social media content as well as being a media consultant and trainer and an executive producer on a daily show at Dubai One. So a whole host of things. But the core to all of that is a passion for film, TV, and content.
Wow. I don't know how you keep up with all of that.
It's a challenge, but I think I've mastered scheduling is what I would say.
Because not only all of that, but I've also seen that you're moderating at events, you're a speaker, and you're mentoring other people in their own, bringing people up into the industry. So that's incredible.
But it all ties into the same thing, and I know we're going to discuss that today, but at my core, I really believe that we're now in an era where the media is in your own hands. So I remember growing up and feeling like the world of TV was like this special world out there reserved for like special people. And the way that social media has evolved, it is now in your hands to create your own content and be as visible as you can. And something I often tell people is if you're not visible, you're invisible. And one of the best ways for you to attract all these opportunities is to grow your own visibility. So part of the speaking, the consulting, the moderating is really about me growing my personal brand as well. Because if I don't do that, then people don't come across my content and I don't have the ability to impact people the way that I want to. So I do think it's part of a business development strategy that should be really important to anyone who's trying to grow their business.
I fully agree, because you would have spent most of your time then behind the camera. When was it that you felt the transition to come in front of the camera? Because that's very, very different worlds, right? Although both of them, but to be in the front of the camera yourself, it's a transition.
It's a hugely different world. And I think, I'm someone who grew up my entire life, most of my experiences behind the camera. And if I'm really honest about it, I think I used to look down a little bit at people in front of the camera, because I always used to think, oh, they're entertainers. Oh, it's like they're not the serious people. The serious people are the ones behind the camera. But then, I've had many opportunities in my life where I've realized that people don't care what happens behind the camera. They're just focused on what's happening in front of it. And honestly, I think it's starting my own business and realizing that I need to be the face of my business. I'm not going to be able to generate the same opportunities or the same sales if I'm not out there. I'm actually not an extrovert. People get this very confused because they see me out everywhere and they think, oh yeah, that must be really easy for her. It isn't. I actually don't enjoy it half the time. I would consider my natural state to be more of an introvert. But when I realized that as part of the journey of growing my own business, I had to be more visible. I had to start to push myself and overcome that. And it's something that I talk about a lot because I think culturally, I'm an Arab Muslim female, and I think growing up, it's kind of looked down on a little bit to put yourself out there. And I remember, the first post that I used to put out, I love my mom, I know she doesn't mean any ill will, but, in Arabic, I'd get these messages saying things like, hayatuk ayn, which means they're going to give you an evil eye. So you're always put in the situation of, oh, it's not quite appropriate for me to be putting myself out there. And I think the older I've become, and the more confident I've got in my message and what I have to share, I've realized that there's value. There's a value to the content I'm putting out there. And that's also doubled when you get positive feedback. So to anyone out there who hasn't made that step, I really think it's a journey, but it starts with that first step of just test the waters, overcome that fear, put yourself out there, but focus on the content. Because if you're focusing on sharing valuable content, that's when nothing else matters. You overcome all the cultural boundaries, you overcome all of the self-consciousness you might be feeling, because the feedback you're going to get is going to be, how you've helped people. And that's so rewarding that it pushes you to keep doing it.
So I think a lot of people shy away from it because they're so focused on themselves. They're focused on what are people going to think about me, exactly what you're saying there. How do I look? How are people going to judge me? And they're not focusing on, as you said, the right thing, which is being of service, offering something of value to your listeners. And if you're focused on what can my audience get out of this, then that's going to change the way you think about it. It's no longer about me. It's about the people. But also selfishly, in a strange way, when you start adding more value and giving knowledge, you'll suddenly get a lot of amazing feedback, So it is a feel-good factor as well when you realize, what I'm putting out there means something. It is having an impact. It is helping others. And that feeds off itself. It kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you start to feel like, I want to do more of this. I want to give back more. I want to share more. I get a lot of people who come up to me and say, you're mad for sharing as much as you do. Because, especially it started during COVID, actually. I used to do a lot of workshops and free webinars where I would share, so many tips and advice and how-tos on how to get started with video. And I remember people saying to me, why would you teach people everything that they would normally pay you to do? And I just thought, well, why not? Firstly, isn't the goal to equip people and help people? Secondly, you're building trust. You're building trust and credibility with all of these people. There will come a day where they'll either support you, refer you, come back to you. So it's in your interest to give and to share, and it all comes back around. Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I'm of the same opinion that your best content should be the content that you put out there even for free. Yep. And that's when people will start to gain that trust and credibility and they'll come back for more. Yeah, so true. Okay, speaking about being on camera then and being in front of the camera, you are of the opinion that almost everybody should be out there.
Everybody can be out there. Yes, I believe that fully.
Even the CEOs and people who are employed by an organization. So they're not necessarily the voice of their own brand, but they're the voice of a company brand. How do you see that?
So I think at the end of the day, people connect with people, right? You build relationships with people, you trust people, and therefore you work with them. So it is in your interest to start developing your own personal brand and putting yourself out there, regardless of what your role may be in an entity or a company. I know I've asked you a couple of these questions before, but any idea the percentage of people who are more likely to do business with a company if they're following the CEO on social media?
I don't know the answer to that one.
77%.
Wow, that's huge.
77%. So in my world, I'm looking at that from a facts perspective. 77% of people are more likely to do business with you if they're following you on social media, which means the content you put out there matters. Being visible matters. Second to that, any guesses the percentage of people who say they would do business with you if they've watched the CEO on camera?
I don't know what the numbers are. Tell us.
It's slightly less. It's 63%. But I still think that's incredibly high.
It is.
So I often get CEOs who say, do I really need to be in the video? Can't we just create the content without me in it? I'm like, yes, you can do that. And yes, there's a whole trend going on right now about, the faceless Instagrammer and the faceless personality. And yes, that's a trend. However, when it comes to building trust, 63% of people are more likely to want to do business with you if they've seen you on camera. I think that's huge. So it's worth doing. And it builds trust in a way that nothing else does. I mean, if you think about it, if you need to go to the doctor, which incidentally, the medical industry is one of the top industries when it comes to relying on video content. If you're going to go to the doctor, you're going to Google, you're going to search. And when you start hearing the doctor and seeing videos of the doctor, that increases your confidence in them. And there's a higher chance that you're going to work with them. And I would say it's not just doctors, it's any industry or any professional which deals with confidential information, deals with one-to-one care. Anyone from a lawyer to an accountant to a psychologist, videos make a difference. And it's about you stepping out of your comfort zone, sharing your knowledge and realizing that this is part of your journey, regardless of whether you're the CEO or whether you're working in an organization. It's your platform to make the most of.
Okay, but there are going to be some barriers that some people will have, and this is where I'm working with people, and we're working specifically on voice, on confidence, on presence on camera, and these are things which I believe are learnable or you can improve on if you have some area which is distracting from the message, the way you speak. But what do you come across, and how do you see this? Because you say everyone should be, but not everyone is good.
I believe everything can be taught. So I think there are two parts to this. It's like, what is your objective for doing it, right? So understand why you want to be out there. Second, what is your area of expertise? What is the value that you're bringing to the table? Third, are you passionate about it? Is this something you want to consistently do? Because if you're not going to consistently do it, you're not going to attract the opportunities and you're not going to grow. If you have that formula where you know why you're doing it, you have a solid area of expertise and you're passionate about it, then it just comes down to the practice. Practice is a skill. You just keep doing it and doing it and doing it and you will get better. So ultimately, I genuinely believe that regardless of who you are, if you've ticked those first three boxes, get out there, start and see what happens.
Yeah. And that's something we always talk about as well, is people saying, but I'm not ready, I'm not practiced enough. But when will you ever be ready?
You're never going to be ready. You're never going to be ready. Just do it. What's the worst? The question I always ask myself is, what is the worst that can happen? What's the absolute worst that can happen? No one likes your content. Okay, you try something different. Yep. And if anything, it's a great feedback loop when you get that feedback and understand, okay, this didn't quite work. Let me try it again a different way. That's the worst that can happen. I always say that your phone is your own personal coach, your camera in your phone. So record yourself, watch it back, analyze it, look for things which aren't so good. Look for things that are good, give yourself self-love, but then look for the things which aren't working so well. You see, I have a slightly different point of view on that. Okay. I'll touch on the first point. I agree with the phone being a tool that you can definitely utilize. And I have friends who have literally told the way to overcome some of these challenges is to just film yourself every single day. You don't need to post it, you don't need to share it, but just get into the habit of putting the camera on and talking to yourself and realizing that this is possible. And the camera is just a tool, So I think once you normalize that process, it gets easier. Having said that, the comment you just made about overwatching and checking, I personally don't do that because as long as the content I'm putting out there has a message, has value, I know someone will learn from, that's enough for me. Because I think people fall into a trap of over-analyzing, overthinking, over-critiquing, and that becomes a barrier to them just putting the content out there. So from my perspective, like, I'm not going to watch this podcast. You know, I don't watch any of them, you know, just because I feel as I want to make sure that in our time, I'll share enough knowledge or information or value that someone will gain something out of it. I don't need to critique how I looked, how I sat, what my hair looked like. Am I more gray? I don't need to do any of that. You know, it's not, my purpose is not that, coming back to people focusing on themselves versus focusing on the message.
But in some ways, I disagree to a point, because there are some people who really do need to work on how they speak.
Sure.
There are interferences, they may be mumbling, there's nothing that, you know, there's all kinds of things which I work with, whether it's accent, strong accent, very boring, monotone voices. And in those instances, they come to me because they want to get better at it. So that's where I say, well, we need to look at, analyze it. Very often they don't even realize what is the issue until we break it down and we see where those problems are, because then you can once you know what they are, that's the awareness, then you can start to work on it.
I think that's slightly different, because you're highlighting people who may have a particular area that they want to overcome. And I understand you want to also see progress. You know, you want to see where you were and where you are today. But often many of the people that I work with or that I've come across have no challenges. The challenge is purely internal. The challenge is purely psychological, you know, where they feel for whatever reason that they haven't performed as well as they could have, or they haven't said things the way they should have, or they don't look the way, you know, if only they'd worn a different top, or if only they sat in a different way. Those for me are not real challenges. Those are mental challenges. That's something you need to overcome within yourself. And one of the best ways of doing that is to really double down on the content, embrace your knowledge, realize that every piece of content you put out there has value, and people are not watching to critique what you look like, but they're watching to gain valuable insight that will help them.
That is hugely valuable advice. And I remember we talked about this on the bootcamp. I attended a bootcamp with you last weekend, which was absolutely inspiring. I learned so much, and I'd love to talk a little bit about that bootcamp.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So a TV presenter bootcamp, and we all come in, and what I noticed, speaking about the confidence and the self-sabotage, is at the beginning of that event, everybody came in and there were some very, very shy, withdrawn people, not sure that they were in the right place, questioning themselves. And by the end of day one, you could already feel that the confidence had grown. They'd learned some skills. They've started to feel more comfortable in front of the camera. By the start of day two, everyone was getting excited. And by the end of day two, then there was no stopping everybody. They just couldn't wait to get back on camera. So tell us a little bit about how you experience this, because you've done several now.
Well, thank you for bringing it up, because I'm actually really passionate about our workshops. And this is just, our latest workshop called On Air, specifically to help people who've always had that dream of wanting to get on air and the opportunities weren't always there, growing up. But I think now, as I mentioned earlier, we're in a zone where you can take things into your own control. And I think when we started this workshop, we had a whole range of people, people who have zero experience, and it was always that childhood fantasy, to those who've actually maybe been in the media world, but just haven't ever had the opportunity to sit in a TV studio and experience some of the live elements. So we have talkback, which is a producer speaking in your ear as you're trying to present.
That was tough.
Or there's autocue, or you're trying to read at the same time and you're managing different cameras. So there's a lot of elements to pay attention to. But what I absolutely love is when everyone realizes it's a skill. When everyone realizes, okay, the first time they've done it, it's a bit challenging and it's a bit overwhelming. The second time they do it, they're a bit more familiar. The third time they do it, it's like, oh, they understand the nuances of it now. And it's a journey, like learning anything else. So and coming back to what I said earlier, the reason I believe anyone can do this is because it's a handful of skills which you just need to practice and grasp. And then what's actually crucial is doubling down on the knowledge and your niche and your expertise, so you're adding value, and hopefully you're confident and comfortable enough that your personality comes out as well. And you're right about the group of people we had. And it's fascinating to me because you often see people who are very confident in their industry. They're very confident at work. They're very confident individuals. But the minute a camera comes in, something changes, and they just feel a bit nervous and unsettled, and they kind of sit a little differently. But it only takes a couple of days, which you experienced. Within 2 days, we have a world of people who are excited to come back, which makes it really special, because you know that it's transforming people. It's a transformational weekend. And I said to you earlier, I'm not someone who enjoys selling or ever really pushes anything. But our workshops I push, because I know for anyone who wants to overcome their camera shyness, I know we do that, because it's like baptism by fire. You throw people in at the deep end, and they can't, when they realize they can handle it, it's like the confidence level goes through the roof, which is great to see.
And I think a lot of people just would shy away just from that feeling. Even I had to think twice, do I really want to do this? Or is this really for me? But if you get the opportunity, I say go do it. Absolutely. And I'll put a link into the show notes for the next bootcamps, which are coming up, so you can go and check it out. Highly, highly recommended. Definitely a wonderful experience. Yeah. So talking about getting out on camera and TV presenting, if you would be hiring somebody as a TV presenter, what is it that you look for?
That's a great question. So I look for personality. I look for confidence, and not necessarily confidence on camera. I look for a confident person who is knowledgeable. And I also want a level of professionalism. So I want someone who will take the responsibility seriously and will realize that this is a team effort. I'm not into anyone who is a diva, or anyone who considers that their role as a presenter is, more important than anyone else in the ecosystem. Because when you're producing a TV show, it is a team sport. It is very much, you're doing what you need to do in front of the camera. I'm doing what I need to do behind the camera. And together, we want to put out the best TV show possible. And, you need a certain level of maturity to understand that if a decision is being made, it's being made in the interest of producing the best content we can. So as a result, all the TV presenters who I currently work with, or who, who've worked with me, have displayed that. They're people, I've been working with people for close to 20 years, the same presenters, because you build a relationship, you start to understand their preferences, their strengths, their weaknesses, and you build trust. Like, they know if I'm saying, look, I need you to stop now, I need you to start, I need you to hand over to someone else, I'm making those judgment calls because it's in their interest, and I want to make sure that we produce the best show possible. It doesn't work when you have someone who questions all of those decisions, who pushes back, who thinks the show is about them. And I've come across situations like that, and you'll find that I no longer work with those individuals.
Okay.
So the people who stay within our presenter family are the ones who understand the importance of their role in the ecosystem, and that it very, very much is a team sport.
If somebody's wanting to get into television presenting, then how do we start?
So unfortunately, in the UAE market, it's not a very big ecosystem. So I can't honestly say there are a lot of opportunities that are out there. What I would say is that your social presence is really important, because when those opportunities do arise, often a TV show, like when we've produced shows, we'll have a casting session. And where do we get our candidates for the casting session?
I'm going to ask that.
We tend to start scrolling through social media. So there's a combination of us putting casting calls out, which are then open. I'm a believer in having a casting call open to anyone, because you will often have people who just haven't had the opportunity before, but actually are the hidden gem. They show up at a casting session and you're like, wow, how have we not seen you before? Because there's talent and skill here, and they just need a bit of confidence. They just need a bit of nurturing, and they start a very different journey. So I believe in having casting calls that are open for everyone. Having said that, depending on the show that you're producing, you may be looking for specific type of talent. And that's when you start scrolling through social media. So what you can do, what is in your control, is really growing your own visibility. Build your own profile, understand your niche. Something I talk a lot about is the importance of a niche. Like, if I'm producing a sports show, I want to find a sports personality who understands the sports world and will add value to my show. because I also believe that if you're passionate about that subject matter, you're going to add so much value to the show, probably more than me. I mean, I've produced shows about topics I have zero interest in, and it's been quite a learning experience. But often that's when the presenters really shine, because they bring something to the table and can talk about their own experience. So I am looking for people who are passionate about something, who have a niche and are confident about it and have knowledge, because that actually ultimately helps us all produce a better show at the end of the day.
You mentioned that you put out casting calls. Where do people find that? I'm asking because my daughter wants to get into acting and television, and she says, there's nothing here, Mum. It's so hard. But where would she find these casting calls? And if anybody else wants to find them?
I have to say she's right. It's not a very big ecosystem, and there are maybe a handful of companies that are proactive and regularly casting for projects. It's a bit different for acting. So I know there are a number of acting coaches or acting schools, so I can't really talk about them. But when it comes to production, I would say one thing you want to do is just be on the radar of a lot of producers like myself, because it's such a small market as well. It's one of those where, it's generally quite easy to get onto someone's radar. So I would say look out for producers of TV shows, exec producers of TV shows, the companies that they work with. So we put our casting calls on our company pages. So every now and then, if we are working on a new project, TI22 Films is our company page, and that's where you'll see a casting call announced. If it's a smaller project or a social project, it might be on our demand page, and other companies will do the same thing. I personally have a broadcast list on Instagram, and that's where I put all of my casting calls or opportunities. It's just research and it's networking. It's who you know more than anything. I know we shared this story at the bootcamp, but I remember very clearly we were about to work with Katie Overy, who is one of our presenters on our TV show. And she knew, I said, look, I need to find more presenters. I'm looking for male presenters. And she recommended a presenter. She recommended Faris Al-Raqad. I'd never heard of him. I'd never seen him before, although he'd been on radio for about 8 years. So it's not for lack of him being out there. I just wasn't aware of him. She put him in touch for the casting. He missed the first casting, which did go down well, because which is another important lesson. If you find yourself with that kind of opportunity, don't miss the casting. And for, beyond that, believe it or not, he missed the second casting. And honestly, had it been anyone else, I wouldn't have considered them. Had it been anyone else, I would have just thought, you know what, this person is unprofessional, can't be bothered to show up to 2 casting calls. This isn't someone I want to work with. But this is an example of where having Katie vouch for him, made the world of difference. So she was like, no, trust me, you just need to see him. He's great. You just need to see him. And he was. I remember him coming in and seeing that clip. I was like, yeah, this, and he'd never done any TV before, but I thought he has talent. He has the potential. I can see this working. Later on, I asked him, I said, how is it possible that you missed 2 castings? Probably one of the most unprofessional things I've come across. As a caveat, he's actually incredibly professional. So I don't want anyone to use that as against him in any way. But he admitted that he actually didn't think he'd get it. It was a bit of self-sabotage on his side. And that I find fascinating, because you get so many people who just don't believe that they could do it, or, have the right look for it, or would be chosen, and they just behave in certain ways that are self-sabotaging. So I think that's such an important lesson, because, and I urge him, he came to the bootcamp, he shared it with our presenters, and I urge him to share it, because I think that's when people realize, wow, even someone who was on radio and confident as he is could also be feeling that way. And it's about taking that step and overcoming it. But yes, to answer your original question, it's about who you know. Because had he not had Katie vouching for him, I'm not sure he would have got that third opportunity.
Yeah, when we heard that, we were all like, what? How could you miss that? Yeah. But it's very much about, as you said, who you know, not necessarily what you know, but who you know in the industry. And your net worth is your network is your net worth. Yeah. I noticed when I was at a recent iftar that you had invited me along to as well. There were so many different people in that room, but at the same time, there were so many people I already knew. So when you're talking about the industry is quite small here and getting to know people, it isn't that difficult to put yourself out there.
It isn't. And I think it's also about the effort that you make. It's about staying in touch with people. It's about helping wherever you can. And it's about being pleasant. It's about having a great attitude more than anything, because there are some people who, I'm very big on the world of positivity. Like, I really, really believe that it's important. It's not just important, it's a necessity for everyone to, as much as possible, be in a positive state of mind. We dance in our office every single day. It's a mandatory thing. We all do it. And people look grumpy when we start, but they're all happy by the end of it. And the reason for that is because I think we want to be in uplifting environments. We want to be around uplifting people. It helps everyone in that in that circumstance. So when I come across personalities or presenters who are grumpy or who just aren't appreciative of where they are or the opportunity, I actually don't want to work with them. So I would say, being nice goes a long way to ensuring that you're kept top of mind. There are days where kind of look at your presenter pool or look at an opportunity, and if I know someone's going to be grumpy, I'm like, no.
Yeah, it brings everybody down.
No, let's just go with someone else.
But speaking about that dancing, we had to dance the entire weekend. And I thought at the beginning, it's early in the morning. I think a lot of people did. But it really brought an energy into the room.
It always does. And it's what I love is I'm not going to name him, but there was a participant who, when we started on the weekend, he just didn't look very happy about the dancing at all. And he'd just stand and he'd clap away. So that was his part of, his way of being involved, but he wasn't going to dance. By the end of day 2, he had some moves.
He did.
And it just, it goes to show a lot of it is mental, a lot of it is comfort, a lot of it is just getting out of your own way, because you probably haven't had to dance at first thing in the morning with strangers, before, let alone at the frequency that we do it. But there's something to that. The frequency breaks that barrier. It suddenly becomes normal. By day 2, everyone's ready to dance, right?
Yeah.
I can't take credit for it because I did learn that I'm a big Tony Robbins fan. So I learned that from his events. And I remember going to my first event in 2016 and, you're sitting there writing notes, and then suddenly like the music's up and everyone's jumping up and down. And he explains that the fastest way to change your psychological state is to change your physiological state, which makes so much sense. So I came back from that, and in my office, I'm like, right, guys, we are dancing every day. And I see it no matter what your mood is. The minute you start jumping up and down, everyone's laughing and smiling. And that's really something that I think everyone needs to embrace.
Yeah. I would agree. It was great. And I'm going to embrace that into my own workshops going forward.
Brilliant.
I want to go back to Expo and getting that deal to be the, I don't even know how to say it, but to be the company that would put that show on air. Just tell us a little bit about that whole experience and getting started first of all.
God, wow. Well, it was quite the experience. It was 2 years ago, just 2 years ago now, that we completed our 6-month stint. It was 183 live shows consecutively, no days off, no weekends.
That in itself is a feat. Yeah.
It really was. And I think out of the 183, I think I was there for like 180. So it was very big impact on our lives. But going all the way back to getting the contract, honestly, we didn't know what an expo was. We didn't really understand what the project entailed. I just knew that it was a great opportunity, and it was, it's an English language show. The English language TV production world had kind of shrunk in recent years, and this was a comeback to that. So I was very excited to be at the forefront of that. Not everyone knows this, but I started in Dubai with Dubai One. So when I was their second employee, Poonam Verma, the presenter, was employee number 1. I was number 2. And I produced, wrote, directed the first English language TV show here, which was called Out and About. And she was the presenter. And about a year later, Lane joined us as a presenter as well. But I had left Dubai One. I'd left Dubai One back in 2010 and started my own company. So Expo 2020 for me was like this strange reunion, like over 10 years later, where I found myself back working with the Dubai One team, and with many of the same faces I used to work with, so it was quite a full circle moment, you know, coming back to work on that project. It was challenging because when we started, COVID then hit immediately. You know, we won the contract and we were all excited and ready to go. And then in came COVID, and then there was a whole pause to the whole project. And for a good year or just under, we were not sure what the future of Expo was going to look like.
Yeah.
And then when it kind of surfaced that, yes, it was just delayed, and, you know, it was still challenging. Like that first month there, I remember, you know, we were on site roughly a month before Expo opened, and it was still a work in progress as a site, and it was incredibly hot, and we still didn't understand what Expo was. You know, we didn't really understand what are we going to fill this show with on a daily basis. You know, we hadn't established the contacts. We hadn't established, you know, what the content would be. So it was really challenging. And we started to just, you know, become very creative and you know, use our own initiative to create reports that we thought would be relevant. So the first couple of weeks were very difficult until, you know, till it kind of woke up around us, you know, and suddenly there were pavilions and people flying in and entertainment. And it's like, wow, this is really an epic event, which is significant to everyone, regardless of who you are or where you're from. And how do we now capture that? How do we capture that essence and show it on screen? So creatively, it was exciting. Pressure-wise, there's a lot of pressure on a daily basis to fill it with new content, new events. And then also technically it was a whole other challenge because it was a new site and it was a new studio and it was a new gallery. And I can tell you a whole world of stories about some of the technical challenges we had. But if anything, it just forces you to level up. You know, it forces you to overcome new challenges. I mean, there were days where schedules would change ridiculously from minute to minute and you just have to wing it and play it by ear. There were days that reports we filmed would just disappear and wouldn't be on the system, and you'd be, you know, ad-libbing for hours. I mean, I could go on, but it was one of those lifetime experiences that I'm always going to be grateful for, and really just we had that opportunity to work with everybody, you know, whether you're a celebrity, a dignitary, someone on the social impact side. It was just fascinating. So I'm very grateful.
And that then led to getting the contract for COP28 as well.
Not directly. No, I mean, COP28, we'd pitch to. It was through a different entity. But I would definitely say the fact that we had worked at Expo, you know, working on that project, you know, meant so much to so many people. It's a global event. And so we found ourselves in a fortunate situation where, you know, when mega events are coming to town, let alone on the same site at Expo, we're very familiar with the Expo site. I think we stand a good chance of hopefully continuing to work on those types of projects. And COP28 was another epic event, a bit different. But it's funny, after you've done Expo, that was 183 days. You know, I remember those early meetings about COP and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be really stressful. Oh, it's going to be really intense. I'm like, but it's 10 days. Yeah. You know, so in my head, I'm like, it's 10 days and it's over. We'll be fine, you know. Yeah. I'm like, oh, but you're going to be working through the night. I'm like, for 10 days, it's okay, you know? And I think you just, that's what I'm grateful for from Expo, because it was such a momentous challenge. It was so intense that I think anything that comes now just pales in comparison and just feels really achievable. And I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, COP28, and then more recently Untold Festival as well, which is completely different. I mean, that's a music festival, but also at the Expo City site, also on a global level. And it's just, you learn from each one. And again, we were meeting the Untold team and they're like, you're going to be working really long hours because, you know, when they're on stage, they don't get off stage till 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And I'm like, for 4 days, we can do it. It's fine. So I think it really just starts to set your benchmarks.
it's one of the things that I admired about you when we heard some of the stories that you've been through as well, is how you keep your calm and you keep everybody else calm. It's quite an admirable talent or...
Thank you. I often tell, when you get asked that question, what's your superpower? I think that's my superpower. Staying calm is my superpower. Yeah. But you have to. It's one of those things where this is not an industry for people who lose their cool, because the number of things that go wrong on a consistent, regular basis, and let alone the more senior you are in that ecosystem. So being an executive producer of a show, I know that the more calm I am, the more calm everyone else is. And I'm always very, very conscious of on-screen talent. I'm very conscious that I want them to be calm. I want them to be smiling. I want the right energy on camera. So they can't know what disaster might be happening behind the scenes. They need to stay in their little bubble, just for the purposes of having the best performance they can. I don't want them worried, about something that may be going wrong. And if I need to involve them, then it's how do you involve them in the calmest possible way so that they feel supported. And I think, once you've done as much live TV as I have, you realize how important that is. And I've seen a few people lose their cool. It doesn't benefit anyone, and it doesn't help you. It doesn't help the show. It's it's pointless. So regardless of what goes on, the key is to breathe. What's the next decision you need to make? What's the next step? And how do you buy time? That's it. How do you buy time? That's such a key question. How do I buy time to think? And if it means I go to commercial, if it means I go to report, so that I can be as calm with my next response. And that's literally what it is.
And that was fascinating at the bootcamp to hear all these stories and also to experience having you in our ear and saying, now, Lisa, you need to go over here, or you need to talk this way, or now pass over to this person. And that was, very, I guess, new, and it took some getting used to, because you're trying to speak at the same time as listening to you, and you're staying so calm. So, I really admire you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the difference between live TV and being able to pre-record.
So I'm a massive fan of live TV, but for a number of reasons, because I think everyone brings their A game. I think when everyone realizes that, this is your one shot at getting this right, everyone's just a little bit more prepared and on their game. So I think the real difference is just being, bringing your A game to the table. You try and do everything, on time, as specific as possible. And it just brings a very different energy. When you're live, you kind of give it your all. When you're pre-recorded, I find that people are a little bit more relaxed. They know that things can be edited out. Mistakes tend to happen. So as a result, even when we're pre-recorded, I tend to go for what's known as live. Mm-hmm. So as live means that although you're pre-recorded, you still operate as if it was a live show. And the reason for that is because I think the day will come where you will have to all be live. So you're not going to be prepared for it if you're constantly stopping and starting and have got used to things being edited out. So it's in your interest to go with the flow. You make a mistake, own it, go with the flow. You stumble somewhere, style it out and keep going, and I think it also frees you a little bit, because you realize you don't have to be perfect all the time, and you can just start to embrace any of the little flaws that may come up and see how to make them work and move forward. So I do think it's a skill, but I do think it's practice. So I'm not a fan of pre-recorded. I think pre-recorded is a very safe space to be in. It's a great place to be when you're learning, when you're training. We'll often, when we start a new show, we'll start pre-recorded with a view to being as live and then going live, because going live also has a whole host of risks. You need to make sure that everyone's brought their A game. And when I say everyone, it's everyone on the technical side as well. You want to make sure that, when you go to commercial, it goes to commercial. Mm-hmm. So there are all these little nuances, which is where you practice in the pre-recorded world. You get better at it when you're as live, and then hopefully the day comes where you're ready to go live every day.
I think this brings us back full circle to what we started with, the importance of putting yourself out there and being on camera. Have you got any special tips then that you could share with my listeners about achieving that? How if you're holding yourself back, What are your recommendations?
I think I've touched on some of them already, but my top recommendations, if you're looking at putting yourself out there, is understand why you want to do it. What is your overall objective? Because I think if you understand why you're doing it, that starts to give it a bit of purpose, right? So you understand that you're trying to help people, you're teaching people, you're educating people, and on what? So what is, I mentioned earlier, your area of expertise. So what is the value you want to add? Be very conscious that every piece of content you put out there should add value in some way. So I think if you really focus on the content and the value, hopefully you'll start to realize that that has more weight than all of maybe the superficial elements that tend to take up more of your mind, such as what do you look like? What are you wearing? Have you done your makeup and hair? And I would say to overcome that, just start putting the content out there. Stop worrying so much about whether you're wearing the right outfit or whether you've got your hair done. And I think you'll be quite liberated when you realize that no one is watching you for those things. They are watching you to get advice and tips and get support in whatever their challenge is, and understand that you have an area of expertise. There's always someone behind you in the journey. And I often talk about Lucy Chow, because I love Lucy, and she's very big in the investment space, and someone who, we worked with for a long time. And I remember having a conversation with her where I said to her, you need to start putting yourself out there. And she said, but why? She said everything, and she's a confident person.
I know Lucy.
And she said, why would I do that? Everything I have to say, people can already Google. People can find it online themselves. So what added value am I bringing? I said, fair enough. You're in a space where there's a lot of education. However, how many people are communicating as a Chinese female in the Middle East, in the investment space, with your level of experience? That is a highly unique voice, and it's going to resonate with certain people in a very different way. So I think the message I'm trying to share is that whoever you are, you have a unique voice, and it's about really embracing it and understanding that even if you think the market is saturated, even if you think all that knowledge is out there already, hearing it from you and your unique voice is going to resonate with your audience in a very different way. And they're waiting to hear from you. And I know for me that I've realized it myself. I'm not the only person talking about video. There are lots of content out there about video. However, I've realized I tend to resonate more with females. I tend to resonate more with females who are Arab, Middle Eastern, or in this part of the world, who possibly have always spent their lives behind the camera, because that was my journey, right? So you often end up resonating with people who you used to be.
Yes.
So in my case, I was much more of an introvert, wasn't as confident, although highly confident in my expertise.
Yep.
So I'm a highly confident executive producer, but I was not confident on camera. And I think when people realize that it's such a tipping point, it's just practice, and that's that tipping point where you can bring that confidence on camera, can help so many people. So just start.
That's the best advice we can give everybody to wrap it up for today. Reim, it's been amazing having you here. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your wisdom, your expertise, and your stories.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing more of your audience out there.
Awesome. Congratulations, you've just finished another episode of Impact Through Voice. You're well on your way to making a positive impact in the world with your voice. If you want more, head on over to lisahugo.com/podcast for show notes and all the links that we mentioned in this episode. Until next time.